payment schedule for outstanding bonds. We confirm receipt of payments related to delayed bond maturity and coupon payments originally due on the 6th and 13th of February 2023. Now, while we welcome the commencement of payments, we are concerned about the absence of communication advising a payment schedule for outstanding maturities and coupon payments. So the issue here now is not really about whether government is honoring the payments or not. They adduce to the fact that yes, government has started honoring the payments as per the dates that were given, the 6th and the 13th. However, they want a schedule. They want communication as to the maturity dates and how payments are going to be made. This, we believe, does not augur well for the rebuilding of confidence in the financial market or trust in government. We humbly call on your office to immediately communicate your repayment schedule as expected of you as an issuer under the Securities Industry and Listed Bond Market rules. And that's the Ghana Individual Bondholders Forum. So that's what's happening in the domestic debt exchange program space, or the bond payment space. I have announced to you already that the Minister of Finance is either in China already or almost in China to talk about the program, debt profiling program, and how government will be able to secure the board approval for the IMF. I'll go back to my seat and we'll get to speak to Lawyer Martin Pebu and Dr. Anani on these issues that I've relayed to you. You want to stick and stay with us? If we have them on Zoom, I'll get on them right now. And let me say good evening to you, Council. And then good evening to you as well, Dr. Anani. Can you hear me, gentlemen? And kindly unmute your mics. If you can hear me, let me be able to hear you as well. So, Council, if you can hear me, kindly unmute. Doc, if you can hear me, kindly unmute as well. We are trying to get your sound. I can see you loud, or I can see you clearly on the screen now. Viewers can see you as well, but unfortunately, we are not able to hear you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay, Doc, I can hear you now. So let me begin with you, Doc. But good evening to you all, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. Doc, we've put across to viewers the statement that we had put out. But let me ask you again, what exactly is the issue for you? I mean, government has started making payments, and you acknowledge the fact that payments have started coming. What exactly is the issue? Again.
Well, we just want to draw the attention of government to the fact that that is not how to treat exempted bondholders. Once you exempt bondholders, you have effectively told the bondholders that they are not part of your problems. Those bonds are not part of the troubled bonds. And as and when the coupons and the principals are due, you are going to pay. There is no way of either asking for time or not. You are to pay as and when it is due because they are exempted. And the government knows that. And all the fights that we're fighting, we made sure people understood what is meant by the issuer exempting you. This is the time that government must comply with the issuer exemption that he gave to the pensioners. The pensioners are not supposed to be waiting or asking for their monies. Once you have been exempted, you must be treated as if the issuer hasn't got any problems at all. No problems. You don't recognize that the issuer has gotten problems because your bonds were exempted, and as such, you don't have to worry about the issuer at all. The issuer must make money available at all times, so that once the bonds are matured or once the coupons are due, the issuer must pay you. That is what we are drawing the government's attention. So we are not supposed to be going through any 1 day delay, 2 days delay, or 3 days delay. As soon as it is mature, you must pay. That is the meaning of exemption.
But Doc, you do acknowledge that it is a period the government or the ministry was going through, trying to separate you from those who were included in the domestic debt exchange program. The whole program is running, and so government needed some time to make sure that bondholders, individual bondholders, are sorted.
Yes, that is why we allow government. You know, if you read our statement, it starts from 14th. If the settlement date had been completed 14th, anytime, as soon as settlement date is completed, you see, you must let people have their money because you have settled. But because it was delayed, government shifted settlement date to 21st. So we were expecting that just after 21st, people who are not involved in the settlement must get their money back. And we waited to 27th, and we visited the offices of the minister. Then the minister gave another 13th, which we waited. 13th, it didn't happen. 14th, we made a press release, and the minister promised that it was going to happen, and it happened. At the time the minister was promising to pay, 2 bonds had already matured with their coupons, and some other interest coupons were due. But the minister said it has given instruction to pay only those payments due on 6th and 13th. But the others, the minister will come out later on with a day payment period. So we got the payment for the first 2 due other coupon plus the bonds. So we have given the minister time, and at that time, the minister said, because of administrative issues, reconciliation, I understand how reconciliations are made, especially when, if you don't take care, you will take somebody who has tendered in who hasn't tendered in his or her bonds, you take the person out of the depository, and somebody who has tendered in, you might still keep the person's name in the depository as holder of the old bond. So there are businesses, transactions that we have to go through to ensure that everything was clear. And so we agree. Now that you have cleared all those things and you have commenced a payment, we are saying we will not allow that to be happening, because that is not what we have bargained for. The exemption you have given us means that you are not going to delay the payment, because as far as we are concerned, you have no problems whatsoever paying our coupons and our mature bonds. So we are giving the government some time to deal with the administrative issues. And now that every administrative matter has been settled, then we will not allow or accept delays. That is the essence of our statement.
Let me go to lawyer and come back to you pretty shortly. Counsel, I don't know if you can hear me now. Good evening to you and welcome once again.
Good evening, Mr. Free.
Right, thank you very much. I can hear you loud and clear now. My question I put to the doctor was that, is there any fuss again? The government has started making payments now, but the Pensioners Association, Coalition, and everyone is saying that government shouldn't be doing this.
Yes, but you see, Mr. Free, from our last letter, you see what we are saying. Mm-hmm. There is no roadmap for the bonds that matured on the 6th, of March, right? Mm-hmm. And then there is the 20th of February.
Yes.
So that is our concern. And also those that are going to mature soon. You know, there is a calendar of all the bonds that we have. So they are you constantly have maturities. constantly. So to the extent that government is paying 6 February and 13 February and has not come up with a definite roadmap for the payment of the rest, that is very worrying, to say the least. I'm putting it very mildly. People's plans have been ruined, financial plans thrown to the dogs. You see, we are in dire straits. We can't overemphasize the point that these bonds are what we live on. That, you know, this Accra, you've heard of Accra Stay by Plan.
Yes.
So, yes, Accra Stay by Plan. Some of the bonds, often we have these plans that these bonds will mature, this group, February. So that's what I used to pay rent. The one that will mature in March, it will pay school fees, etc. So various schemes that we've planned our lives around. So when you have government just throwing those schemes to the dogs, it's not a funny thing at all, especially in light of the fact that these very bonds are bonds that have made Mr. Ofori-Atta and President Akufo-Addo very rich. You know, Mr. Ofori-Atta admitted in Parliament when he went that data banks made fees and commissions from these bonds. And Mr. Ofori-Atta is a brother to the president. I say brother because Mr. Free, I'm sure with your surname, you know in Akan, there is no word for cousin, it's brother. So you see that close connection. So the family is benefiting enormously. They have made money on our backs, and we are now gnashing our teeth. So while some set of citizens are grinding and gnashing their teeth, another set, as the president and his brother finance minister, are laughing all the way to the bank. They have made money, and it's so nauseating. So what I'm saying is that how can the people who are in charge be making so much money from these bonds while citizens are starving to death, while citizens have their businesses collapsing, while citizens are dropping out of school, while citizens cannot buy medication, while citizens cannot pay their rent? So government better come out with a definite roadmap, because this thing has to stop. It's got to stop. You know, when we started this whole thing, and Dr. Edua Nanyentwi was part, you know, the finance minister, Mr. Ofori-Atta, said we should form a technical committee and show government exactly what we said government should cut back. Because the main argument, and which is still the number one argument, was that, look, government has to look into the 2023 budget and cut down a lot of the capital expenditure and some of the recurrent expenditure. Everybody agrees. You remember even the German ambassador had to come in when President Akufo-Addo asked Germany to help beg China. The German ambassador said, look, my country has less number of ministers. How can you continue living large, bathing in the sky, etc., and asking that we should beg for you when you are not willing to cut back? So the main problem is that President Akufo-Addo and Mr. Ofori-Atta have not come out to pragmatically show what they are cutting back on, because that is the main way to go. You know, we showed in the budget that the recurrent expenditure, some of them, and then the capital expenditure must be cut back. We've shown that over and over, everybody. So later on the economists came and they agreed. You know, when we started making noise about cutting back the capital expenditure and the current expenditure, we are lay people. But when the economists, Professor Bobkin, Professor Aite, all of them, they all agree that let's cut back. Till date, President Akufo-Addo and Mr. Ofori-Atta have not come back. They have to go back to Parliament with a new Appropriations Act, because this old one will not work. The budget that was passed is not going to work. It won't work. It's laughable. They just have to quickly cut back. But you see, they are stalling on that, and they said, what? Concentrating on other things, because you have to show people what you are willing to do, the one that is within your power, the one that you can easily control, cutting back on capital expenditure and some of the recurrent expenditure. You haven't shown any strength, you haven't shown any commitment on it, and you think China will be listening to you because you look very disorganized. Everybody said it, that cut back. So by now they should have had a new budget, go back to Parliament, say, look, I want to downsize. Cut down your number of ministers, cut down the state institutions, etc. But you see, so far, They've abandoned that and are looking at the foreign creditors committee
you're
with
not,
the external debt.
You're not hopeful that we'll be successful with the Chinese negotiations?
Chinese, there will be some level of success. But from what I understand, the Chinese don't cancel debt lightly. They'll just restructure. So they postpone, they give you moratorium and then restructure that you pay in future. But they don't cancel outrightly, at least from the experts we've heard. And you know, the Chinese are often looking for a lot of natural resources, bauxite. You remember the Sino, hydro, those projects. So they want butter, bauxite, and the rest, and they know we have gold, we have bauxite, etc. So I understand they don't cancel, but rather they can postpone repayment and the rest. That can be done. But you see, it's not at the end of March. So far, all the experts are saying we are not going to make it at the end of March. You know, the president, even in his State of the Nation address, said we will have a deal with the IMF by the end of March. So far, it doesn't look like it, because even I think they brought out the calendar of the IMF, and we don't seem to feature from now to the end of March. It doesn't look like it. So that is it. So you see, one thing that is very clear in all of this so far is the crass incompetence of Ms. Ofori-Atta and the president. The incompetence is just overwhelming. Show people commitment. You are the one begging. People are saying cut down. By now, the president should have reduced the numbers. Then wherever he goes, people say, oh, he is remorseful for his monumental failure. He is very sorry. He just didn't know how to go about it, but now he's listening to advice. Can you imagine how people would welcome Ms. Ofori-Atta if the numbers of the ministers and all those had been reduced to, let's say, 60, even 70, even if you had reduced from the 86 or 87 to about 60.
Unfortunately, we have lost lawyer Martin Pibul. I think we'll reconnect again with him right about now. That's lawyer Martin Pibul on Zoom there. We have Dr. Edu Anane Enchi, who is also the convener for the Pensioner Bondholders Association. We'll reconnect with him. There are one or two I'll put up to him on the performance so far of government and whether the economy is rebounding and so on and so forth, whether we are getting the IMF. Today is the 21st day of March, and so whether we are getting the IMF program, board approval or not, and so on and so forth. After which, we'll get into the State of the Nation address versus the true State of the Nation address. So you would want to be with us. If I'm able to reconnect with lawyer Martin Pibul and Dr. Edu Anane, I'll do that right now. I would allow lawyer to conclude or to be able to land on what he was talking about before I go to the State of the Nation address. But if we are not able to connect, we'll go. But if I get him, do we have him? Council, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, thank you. We have you back on. So yes, let me allow you to go on.
Yeah. So what is incompetence writ large on the part of Ms. Ofori-Atta and the president, just showing like they are just totally clueless, because everybody says cut. When you cut back, everywhere you go, people will see that these are men who are ready to make amends. Because you remember the president, when he was coming into office, that very thing that made us vote for him, one of his main messages was that he was going to diversify this economy. He would change the structure of this economy within 18 months. That's what is usually called the Gettysburg economy, where we rely on so much raw materials, gold, cocoa, just sending them, exporting them like that without much value added. And also, we're going to do a lot of import substitution. There's a man who diagnosed the problem well, and then he lost focus. When he was put in the saddle, he couldn't do that. So you see that once the president is not even able to do something as common as just cut back, then there's nothing else he can do. You can't fire people to reduce the number of ministers. Then what else can the president do? Mr. Free, you look at it too. Just reducing numbers. Just reducing numbers. The president doesn't have wealth. It's just way too much. We are suffering. President Kufuor. This has to stop. He just doesn't feel anything for us. That's why sometimes I say it's not his fault. Now he's made a lot of money through the fees and commission data bank made through this what do you call it, the bonds that we borrowed. So he doesn't really care, and he can bask in the sky. But President Kufuor has to remember that that is his legacy. That is his legacy. That what he did was that he just came, enjoyed, and plunged the whole country into a deep crater. That is his legacy. At least if he had even shown remorse by this time, show some remorse by taking decisive steps, cutting down these ministers, cutting down costs, then we will know that at least he showed some remorse. But as long as these numbers remain where they are, and he's even seeking to add more, it just tells you that President Kufuor has checked out, the worst president ever in our history.
Well, let me leave you at that, and let me take the final words of Dr. Edu Anane on these same issues. Doc, you have gone ahead to even accuse the securities regulators, let me put it that way, for the current state of the domestic debt exchange program, and you accuse them of not protecting investors.
Yeah.
Doc, can you hear me?
Come again. I didn't hear that.
Right. So I'm taking your final words. I'm taking your final words, and I'm saying that you have even gone ahead to accuse securities regulators that they didn't protect investors, and that's how come we have a form of the DDEP, which you described.
It's the whole process that I complain about. You see, government securities are not supposed to be approved when they are going to issue by the SEC. It's not done. The law doesn't allow SEC to approve of government issues. So when government is going to issue securities, it doesn't come to the SEC for the prospectus or the offer document to be approved. But once the government has issued the securities and investor has bought the securities, they become investors who have invested in securities, whether the securities is corporate securities, municipal securities, or government securities. They are all securities. And the SEC is to protect investors in securities. So if SEC is protecting investors, it is supposed to protect investors in corporate securities, municipal securities, all manner of securities. And my issue was that when the issuer of these bonds, which is the government, when the government decided to do an exchange program, and the government said, I am not going to pay my creditors any interest, 0 interest the first year, 5% the second year, 9% the third year, 9.15, 9.13, 9. And the regulator of the securities market, which is supposed to protect investors, an investor was getting 30%, 25%, and the issuer said, I will give you nothing. And the protector of the investor would not do anything. That is my problem. That the Securities and Exchange Commission should have come in and told the issuer, this is not approval of the bonds to be issued. No, we don't approve government bonds to be issued. But we protect all investors, whether they are investors in government securities, corporate bonds, or shares. They must be protected. And that is what I find very worrying, that the SEC would not do anything to ensure that these investors are protected, and we were left on our own without any protection. But that is the mandate, is to protect investors. So if people are having government bonds, the SEC has a mandate to ensure that the government doesn't do anything that would affect the bondholders unnecessarily. You know, just like you don't want a corporate issuer to do anything like that to affect its bondholders or shareholders, it's the same manner that SEC should have done. My worry was that SEC did nothing, and as if those investors were not investors in securities, as if government securities are not part of the securities that when people have invested in, the SEC should protect. That was the point I made.
Right. Thank you very much, Nana. And Lawyer Martin Pegu. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And Doc, yes, Doc and Lawyer Martin Pegu. I'll learn that here, and I'll take a quick break. When I come back, I would have Honorable Mutala Mohammed and Dr. Kabiru here in the studio to be talking about the State of the Nation address. But before I do that, there are a few messages I'm receiving. We are not the only people going through hard times. This is from Bishop Yao Opoku Mensah. He says, the Francophone countries, for them, they have no economy at all. It's being controlled and managed by France. With the Anglo economies, Ghana is ahead of them in terms of the effects of COVID and how we manage it. The intervention we are seeking from IMF is not budgetary or salary support, but balance of payment support. With COVID and the closure of our ports, coupled with heightened global inflation, foreign reserves depleted very fast due to increases in prices of imported items. Example, we started the year 2022 with price of a barrel of oil at $62 per barrel. But in the middle of March, we are buying it at $90 and subsequently $130. We got knocked out from the international financial capital markets that had traditionally been our source of foreign currency. Government is only engaging with the IMF for just foreign exchange support, BOP. Government keeps honoring salaries and other commitments without taking a flesh. Tell your guy to be real and stop the useless politics. Did he take the COVID jab? Did he call for the evacuation of the Ukraine students? Who told him KK was 50 pesos when JDM was president? Was it sold at 1 pesos in 2008? Bishop Yao Opoku Mensah sent in that one. Nana Akwamwabwatson says, good evening, Akwasi. The NDC leadership are a bunch of noisemakers from the chairman to the communication officer. I do not think they are ready and hungry for power. Ghanaians are wise enough. Anyway, special greetings to Engineer Benjamin Arthur, CEO of Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. Master Planner, Junior Kintampo, says, Lawyer Martin Pegu was wrong. On what basis is he saying President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is the worst president in Ghana history? Is it because of the debt exchange program or what? He shouldn't forget, regardless of all his external shocks, free SHS is still ongoing. One district, one factory is on course. District without hospitals are also getting hospitals. He should go and come back again with facts and figures. Master Planner Junior Kintampo sent in that one. Amisco Spelele in Kaswa Republic says, even though it's difficult to win a deal with China, when China is involved, I'm very optimistic that our plea on the external debt exchange program will go through in order to seek for the IMF deal. So let's all trust the process. Regards to Honorable Mavis Hawa Kumsin, Amisco Pelele in Kaswa Republic sent in that one. And lots of messages coming in there. Wow. Well, let's see this one. This is an announcement, well, from the productions team of Good Evening Ghana. We are talking to you about the AFCON qualifiers. That's Ghana versus Morocco, and you have the flyer on the screen there. We say that the tickets are available for purchase. VVIP goes for 70 Ghana cedis. VIP goes for 50 Ghana cedis. The Wings, 50 Ghana cedis. Center line, 30 Ghana cedis. And popular stand is 20 Ghana cedis. You can as well dial *711# to purchase the available tickets. The date is the 23rd day of March 2023, of course. Venue is the Baba Yara Sports Stadium. So please take notes and make your purchase now. You can do a pre-purchase, and we'll get on. All of us will get on to watch the match. I'll take a quick break. When I come back, I'll have the videos of Akufo-Addo and Sedwin Ketia for you. President Akufo-Addo and the chairman of the NDC, Sedwin Ketia, for you. Stay with us.
Running your own business takes time, passion, and hard work. It takes commitment and perseverance in the face of challenges. As an entrepreneur, I look for value. How to get more for less. That is what Vodafone Too Much Business gives. Too much data, minutes for calls, SMS bundles, and my favorite part is too much flexibility to customize your mobile plan.
Get more value for your business. Sign on to Vodafone Too Much Business, a cost-efficient mobile offer that allows you to choose and customize how much data, voice or SMS allocations your business needs. Send start to 050-777-9000 or email vodafonebusiness.gh@vodafone.com.
Whatever your business needs are, Vodafone Too Much Business has a solution for you.
Dummy dribbles to the right. He's got an opportunity on the edge of the penalty box. He's gone past the defense. This must surely be it. It's in. It's a goal.
With only 150 pesos, you can win up to 16.5 million Ghana cedis in the Betway Atina Ketia jackpot. A jackpot muhine. Bet responsibly, not for persons under the age of 18. This advert has been approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana.
Mall? Sure.
Ride in a few taps.
Jones Party? Sure.
Ride at fixed prices you know up front.
Home? Sure.
Ride with in-app safety features 24/7. Ride, surely, with Yango.
Score HD, the new exciting football channel, is now available only on HD Plus and brings you football from around the world. Watch Sadio Mane and Daniel Kufitre in the top weekly match of the Bundesliga 1 and DFB Cup, Primera Liga, Copa de la Liga Profesional, see Ronaldo in the Saudi Pro League, as well as daily sports news every other hour. Also, get updated on Messi and Mbappe on PSG TV and many more. Feely on HD Plus channel 151. Agronaede, HD Plus, the Feely experience.
I've said, and many others, including the managing director of the IMF, have said that our economy was doing well until COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine. Was doing well until COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine took us off course.
Was still alive, and no earthquake in Turkey. Also, the budget deficit had exceeded the legally acceptable threshold of 5% and had hit 7.5% in 2018 and 7% in 2019. There was no COVID. Again, before COVID-19, the Ghana cedi in 2019
Mr. Speaker, our drone delivery service is firmly established, and Ghana now has 6 centers for zipline drone services, making Ghana the largest aerial logistics distribution network in the world. Zipline, through the National Scale Drone Delivery Services, has delivered some 14.8 million units of life-saving medicals, vaccines, and blood products to health facilities in Ghana by the end of 2022. Childhood vaccines top the list with the delivery of 8.3 million doses, followed by 2.05 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine. The National Health Insurance Authority has also improved its claim management processes with an emphasis on e-claims and paperless systems at all 4 claims processing centers. In the year under review, electronic claims processing was about 70% of all claim submissions. As of 31st December 2022, the scheme paid a total of 1.014 billion cedis to health service providers.
Was still alive, and no earthquake in Turkey. Also, the budget deficit had exceeded the legally acceptable threshold of 5% and had hit 7.5% in 2018 and 7% in 2019. There was no COVID. Again, before COVID-19, the Ghana cedi in 2019 was plummeting in double digits, leading to the setting up of a 40-member committee by the government to investigate the causes of the alarming depreciation of the national currency. Surprisingly, the committee excluded the chairman of the economic management team, a move described by many analysts as a vote of no confidence in the competence of His Excellency Vice President Mahmoud Bawumia by his own government. In fact, per paragraph 61 of this government's own 2020 mid-year budget review statement, and I beg to quote, in the year to December 2019, the Ghana cedi cumulative depreciated by 12.9% against the US dollar, compared with 8.4% depreciation in 2018. Against the British pound and euro, the Ghana cedi cumulatively depreciated by 15.7% and 12% respectively, compared with 3.3% and 3.9% over the same period in 2018, unquote. Far from being the cause of economic collapse, COVID-19, in fact, brought the Akufo-Addo-Bawumia government an unprecedented windfall of about 30 billion Ghana cedis to manage and mitigate the impact of the pandemic. Unfortunately, this was largely wasted on election-related expenses. This amount excludes proceeds from the obnoxious COVID-19 levy, which Ghanaians continue to pay till date. My brothers and sisters, according to the Auditor General, only 11.7% of this amount was spent on government COVID-19, with the remainder of about 18 billion being channeled into so-called budget support. There is no gainsaying the fact that the coronavirus pandemic affected all countries in the world, including our next-door neighbors, Benin.
Right, so that's the chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Mr. Seydou Ketia, speaking at the quote-unquote true state of the nation address. And earlier on, you had seen His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, also delivering the State of the Nation address in Parliament time back. Let me welcome the gentleman here into the studio. To my immediate left is the Honourable Member of Parliament, Tamale Central Constituency, Comrade Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed. Comrade, good evening.
Good evening, my brother.
Thank you for joining us. And then Dr. Tia Abdul Kabiru Mahama is a technical advisor to the Office of the Vice President. Doc, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for having us.
I hope you're doing well.
We are doing great.
Let me begin with you. Did you listen to Mr. Seydou Ketia?
So let me start off by saying good evening to your cherries. The State of the Nation address, in line with Article 67 of the Constitution, which required the President to, present to Parliament, to the people of Ghana through Parliament, the state of the nation. In other words, the President is expected to tell the people of Ghana how the management of the economy, how are the socio-economic indicators, how is the political architecture of the country, how is the social cohesion of the country, peace and stability, democracy and what have you. All aspects and facets of the economy and of the national life expected to be touched on. But the president took a rather different approach following the exigencies of the issue. And he craved the indulgence of Parliament to go that route. The president begged to differ from the usual processes of having to touch every sector of the economy and give highlights to areas that are imperative and that are sensitive considering the times we found ourselves. The president gave a very good speech. The opposition came at the speech. We don't want to litigate or go back to revisit what the president said and what was in response. But basically, the president gave an account of the state of the country in a very fair and balanced manner, acknowledging the challenges, positing the successes we've chalked over the period in the midst of crisis, what we'll be able to do, and also trying to give some hope to the Ghanaian people, indicating that, look, let's focus on the bigger picture, let's look at the bright spots remaining of that particular big global gamut of global issues of challenges. The president, when he said that, actually listed a number of successes and even answered for the first time the critique that money has been borrowed and not used. And I've seen that it has been repeated even in this particular speech, despite the fact that the president provided an appendix or an annexure to the presentation on what money has been used for. That said, what happened yesterday by the General Secretary of the NDC, now the chairman, yes. The chairman of the, I usually forget that he has changed, rank or position in the party. You see, what happened can best be described, in my honest opinion, in 5 terms. 1, it was bereft of depth. The speech was bereft of depth. 2, the speech was intellectual incompetence. And I'll come to justify why I use these words, and I'm not using them lightly. Thirdly, the chairman's statement was factually anemic, very factually anemic, very weak in facts, and where facts are presented, they were misrepresented. The chairman's statement was morally bankrupt, and I'll explain why it was morally bankrupt, and the chairman's statement was utterly shocking. These are the description that best fits the statement by the chairman. Why do I say the statement was bereft of depth? First and foremost, one will expect a chairman of a party that claim or that sees itself as in fact, in their own words, the only viable alternative to the bungling economy, in the words of Asiedu Nkatia. Such a party presenting a statement, one would have expected a very coherent presentation of the issues. But the shuffling and bungling and convoluted natures of the issues left me wondering whether that was the state of the NDC or the state of the Ghanaian, the true state of the Ghanaian economy. Why would you give an account of a nation, what you are expecting your leaders? At a point, I had to switch out my television and consider it as the unproductive use of my time, and that it was hours lost, consequent to the decision to listen to the chairman. And I had to read the remaining part of the speech, the text, because I couldn't, the listeners were even, it was boring. I had to listen to my brother's, what's the name of, Felix Kwachi. It was not enthused. And in fact, that presentation, juxtaposed with the presentation John Mahama made, and the presentation at the same venue, are two forces made. One will see a very sharp, a gulf of difference. In fact, an hours of difference between the two speeches, or you are taking comparison. And I didn't even know why they had to choose the person of Asiedu Nkatia to make the presentation. That's it. That is their own cup of tea. Apart from that, I say it is lack of depth because it was a pedestrian attack of the personality of the vice president and the president, with that sterile innuendos. In fact, pestilential ventilation of frustration by Asiedu Nkatia. That demonstration of frustration and that word that were used to describe the government is just showing that, look, this is the chairman of a party who is trying to make first impression, the first major event after becoming the chairman of the party. The Asiedu Nkatia, the combined effect on concluding on that first aspect of the description is that the sum of that speech and the combined effect of the comment that came out after that speech is a complete disaster of a presentation. The second description of that statement I said it was factually anemic. It was factually anemic because, one, you present facts. Go to that speech.
Okay.
He made presentation about depreciation of the cedi. And he said that for the first 2 months of this year, the cedi has depreciated by 23% or so. That, on the basis of fact, is incorrect. The cedi was doing how much at the end of last year? 12-13. We ended the year with cries that the cedi was depreciated. What is the state of the cedi? 11-12. That cannot be a depreciation within 2 months. And the general secretary, the chairman of the party had the temerity, the podium, the audience of the nation, and to present such figures to the listening public, and they want us to believe that. Aside that, the general secretary also presented facts on the debt issue. He said that debt to GDP, the country inherited debt of 120 billion, which is wrong, which is a misrepresentation of facts. The debt stock as at December 2016 was 122.2 billion Ghana cedi. Okay, you presented 120, and you prove that is the true state of the nation. That is one of the things that I mentioned about they were factually anemic. And I'll come to the other issues on the speech. He also mentioned about the fact that conspicuously missing in the speech when he was talking about fiscal deficit was the period of less than 5% fiscal deficit that was recorded in 2017, 18, and 19. And he jumped to 2020, jumped to 2022. And you want me to consider such a speech as intellectual sound? No, I cannot. Because the picking and choosing, the shuffling of issues does not lean itself to such a description. They also went to choose Togo, and they always found convenience to say that Togo there was COVID. Cote d'Ivoire there was COVID, but they are doing well. But because of the lack of proper due diligence, they are forgetting to tell the Ghanaian people, even Togo is in an IMF program. Togo is on the extended credit facility program. But conveniently, they always cite this country, why are they doing well, and Togo, our neighbors, but they don't go to the fact and question that these people are on IMF program, these two countries. So consider a country that is borrowing from the commercial market in your intro. You mentioned it. Now, they also went ahead to talk about budget deficit, and I've said about Togo, they also went average lending rate. He talked about the cost of credit. He forgot that in 2016, average lending rate was 31%. The rate now, what's the rate now? Even the rate that we took it for, even in the midst of crisis, it has not even level the level that we inherited from. So that's why I'm saying that it was factually anemic. And let's go on to the substantive incompetence of that presentation. Because that is the government of that presentation. What was the sum effect of what was said? He failed in their description that they are the only viable alternative to the Bengali economy to provide any substantive recommendation to the crisis that so diagnosed. The crisis the Asuni Kantia diagnosed. There was not even single profile of solution to the effect that as the viable alternative to the Bengali economy so described, this is our benchmark, this is our roadmap, this is our plan to recover, and this is what the NDC government will do. Apart from the sterile innuendos that were casted on the vice president and then the president and then the finance minister. Last but one description was moral bankrupt. Why do I say it was moral bankrupt? This is a government that was in government, this is a party that was in government 6 years ago. That the very issues mentioned, human rights, he mentioned it at the program. Let my vote count demonstrators were lashed. People were maimed on the streets of Accra. He's talking of human rights, and that the president didn't talk about that. He talked about corruption. I don't want to even talk about the corruption scandals in the NDC. My brother here is a living testimony to some of the corruption scandal that some of which behind closed door he shunned and disdained and spoke vehemently against. The same government 6 years ago is now coming to mount a moral pulpit to talk about corruption when the same government, the accused of corruption, has resourced the anti-corruption agency more than any other government in the Fourth Republic. setting up the office of a special prosecutor, which has demonstrated that it was a good intent. The special prosecutor is working, and people are being prosecuted, and even officers, civil servants, public office holders, and even Ghanaians at large are investigated for various offenses. The sanction on corruption. The person is having the moral right to bump and talk about corruption. He talk about economy. He has soon forgotten that within without crisis, people lost their businesses, as he said, people lost their jobs in this government. He forgot that this country was, faced with a catastrophe of a national disaster of a caliber that has never been experienced by this country, a doomsday crisis, which was occasioned largely by a financial problem, the inability of government to pay independent power producers of their obligation when they fall due. The same government is not appropriate to talk about economy. They are not appropriate to talk about borrowing that government has borrowed. They have forgotten so soon that they have been able, during their period 2016, between 2000, they have increased the debt to this by 17.9 percentage points. They are only taking the stock. Admittedly, government has borrowed some money and added to the debt stock. But you look at the rate. Nkrumah handed President Nana Kufuor handed what value to them? Debt to GDP. And what did they increase it to? And on a crisis, why do we always say Russia and Ukraine? And they always say that this is an excuse. The war in Ukraine and the COVID has increased our expenditure no one ever contemplated, and it's a fact. We had to pay nurses more than they used to get. They had to increase their allowances. We have to exempt them duties. That is a fact. Government had to spend in the fight against COVID-19. That's a fact. And they mentioned about some billions of Ghana in the speech, that about 180 billion of that money is only what is being used for what they call it, infrastructure. The rest is used for consumption. It is in that particular speech that was given. And I sit down to say, let's take the financial, the triple whammy, financial sector cleanup, which they occasioned, the COVID-19, and then excess power capacity, which took this country about 50.1 billion. Was that money for consumption? Free senior high school, which took this country over 15 billion. Was that money for consumption? These are monies spent on productive investment, on the human capital, on the productive sector of the country. Let's do the combined effect of Pokwasi, Tamale, and then Obichebe Lemte. That is 275 billion, okay, compared to Circle Dubai, which was 265 billion. Okay, even the value for money, that same government is talking about corruption. That same party is talking about corruption. And the money that is used for this infrastructure project, they think that is for consumption. The various 7 other interchanges that are ongoing is for consumption. Right. The Eastern Corridor Road, that has been 336 kilometers added to that particular network that they started, that's consumption. Right. The over 88 hospitals that they mentioned that was started, and the Agenda 111 for every district with a hospital, that is consumption. If that is consumption, then I would say that the government should consume more with the money borrowed. This is the state of the NDC that was presented, not the state of not the true state of the economy. And the choice of the state of it, because it was a convoluted, disjointed presentation of issues to present the picture that the NDC is the alternative, when in fact they are not the alternative that should be within the contemplation of every ordinary Ghanaian or right-thinking Ghanaian. Okay,
let me come to you, Honorable Mutala, and forgive me, Vincent Ofori. Vincent Ofori is a political strategist in the UK. You sent a message. Unfortunately, I've deleted it, but if you can't put it up again, please do. I'll try and read it. So, Vincent Ofori, good evening to you. And let me come now to the studio. I'm getting lots of messages for you. People are asking, you are here again on Good Evening, Ghana. But you're welcome.
It's banter with
Yes. I mean, this is...
I didn't beg to come here. You invited me.
Oh, no, we are not going into that. I'm just...
No, but I don't get the point you are trying to make. I didn't come begging to come on your program.
We invited you, of course.
As a matter of fact, you begged me to come on the program. So let me state that. So when you say you are here again...
No, I'm telling you about text messages.
It was needless.
I'm telling you about...
I haven't even spoken. And then you are telling me that people have sent text messages. But let
this is for you.
Anyway, I can't be.
This is for you.
I can't be distracted. Let me make my point.
So I mean, let me the state of the nation. Let me give you that.
Well, first and foremost, he wasn't impressed about the true state of the nation as delivered by the national chairman of the NDC, General Mosquito, and it's understandable why he wasn't impressed, because at least General Mosquito didn't use big words. He didn't speak big English, and my brother was speaking big English, you know, when he was making his submission. General Mosquito spoke the language that many Ghanaians resonate with. He spoke the language that many Ghanaians understand. And I agree with him that the president honored the constitutional obligation as stated in Article 67 of the 1992 Constitution to present to the people of this country the state of the nation. And among others, he's supposed to do so at the beginning of every session of a parliament and before the end of same session of parliament. And the reason why the president has to present the state of the nation in parliament is that he would have done it with the entirety of the Ghanaian people. But you can't gather 32 million people, over 32 million people, to tell them the state of the nation. You do so through their representatives. So the president is expected to be absolutely sincere, honest with the people of this country. And the reason why the president must be honest with the people of this country when he is presenting the state of the nation is, one, to help policymakers to understand the true state of the country. That feeds into the kind of policies they formulate. It's to help ordinary citizens to plan their lives, because the president has a privileged position that no Ghanaian has. He understands, or he has first-hand information as to the security of the state, the financing of the state, if you like, social issues of the state. So when the president appears before parliament, and what he engages in is absolute peddling of falsehood, that for me is unbecoming of a president of a republic. In our parlance, if an elderly person lies, they don't say he lies, they say he slips. He slips in the statement he makes. But when the slipping becomes so relentless, people may be compelled to call a spade and not a big spoon, that he lied. And I thought my brother was going to play the ball. Instead, he decided to play the man. I thought he was going to challenge the issues raised by the national chairman of the NDC and state to the people of this country that those issues were not accurate or they were not factual. Instead, the factuality of some of the issues he raised comes, one, he talks about intellectual incompetence, and I don't know what he's talking about, perhaps because he didn't use big words, he didn't speak big English. He talks about weak in facts, and clearly he couldn't point out how those facts were very weak. He talks about moral bankruptcy, and I was wondering where that one was also coming from. And he said that it was bereft with death. As a matter of fact, the description to the statement or the true state of the nation as done by the national chairman, and for which reason this big English have been spoken this night on this program, same description can be given to the statement that was delivered by the president. The difference is that the president delivered a statement that was full of a lot of inaccurate statements. And you see, the MPP, just as the president demonstrated, and my brother has done the same, the MPP is behaving like a child who is at his concrete operational. They handed over to the MPP a debt of 120 billion. I said, no, that is not true. It is 122 billion. That is not the issue. What is the issue is what you have taken the debt stock to. You have borrowed over 480 billion. There is nothing to show. And I was shocked that he made reference to the Eastern Corridor. The Eastern Corridor contract was done by the NDC. As a matter of fact, the NDC government started the work. It was virtually almost 50-60% complete. You abandoned the work. You abandoned the work for no any reason. It took you 4-5 years after which you started the work. And the variations that for which your recklessness in abandoning the work has cost this nation. Another work has to do with the East Legon bypass. Do you know the total contract sum? And they abandoned this work for 5 years. The state now has to cost millions of dollars to complete a work that if you never abandon it, the state would have completed that work without any too much cost. Cocoa Roads. Cocoa Roads, which the NDC executed and started. You came in the name of investigating. You abandoned the Cocoa Roads. It took you about 2 to 3 years that you commenced that work with a lot of variations. If this was not a reckless spending, then I want to know what constitutes a reckless spending. Nobody has said anywhere that COVID or Ukraine cannot have an effect on the economy of any nation. Nobody has said that. And by the way, the Ukraine war didn't start today. The Ukraine war started in 2014, if you care to know. And in 2014, when the entire Crimea was invaded by Russia, it had effect on global economy, particularly those who were dependent on these two countries. We import a lot of fertilizer and wheat from these countries. So it destabilized it at the time. Now, the argument we have made consistently, that when you talk about the fact that all the problems we are facing today are as a result of Ukraine and Russia, that is why people are asking you questions. And I would want to take him through this. What is the best way, and I want you to answer me, of managing COVID for which you deserve to be praised than preventing lives from being lost? Is there any better way that one can manage COVID than protecting the life of your citizens from being lost? I want you to answer me.
Didn't the government do that?
No, I'm asking you a simple question as to whether this government or not. I want you to tell me genuinely, is there any better way to manage COVID than ensuring that your citizens' lives are not lost? Is it not the best way of managing COVID?
It is.
Many people died in Ghana than they died in our neighboring countries. And I'll give you the statistics. Nigeria, 3,155 people died in the name of COVID. Ghana, 1,456 people died in the name of COVID. Togo, 275 people died in the name of COVID. Burkina Faso, 396 people died in the name of COVID. If you look at the raw figure, 3,155 people died in Nigeria. It's bigger than 1,456 people who died in Ghana. But you see, intellectually, if you want to do an analysis, juxtapose the raw figure against the population of Nigeria.
I wasn't going to interrupt you. I decided not to, but because you asked me the question, is it not the case of, I remember one of the countries, I think closer to Southern Africa, they didn't have the system to even check, and so they didn't even know the numbers.
Am I talking about countries?
The robustness of
I'm not talking
the
about
systems in Ghana that we were able to monitor effectively.
Who told you we monitored better than Nigeria?
I'm only asking.
Please hold on. That question is needless, and I will tell you this. Who told you we monitored it better than Nigeria, monitored better than Ghana? As a matter of fact, the argument that is being made by these people, that the WHO praised Ghana, go and check. They praise Togo, they praise Burkina, they praise Nigeria, they praise Senegal. But let me go with those figures. Now, if you look at the raw figures, 3,155 people who died in Nigeria is bigger than 1,456 who died in Ghana, isn't it? But to do a proper analysis of the number of people who died and the effect it will have on your population, you juxtapose that against the population of Nigeria. If you do 3,155 against 200 million people, the figure you get is around 0.001%. Now do 1,456 against 32 million Ghanaians, you get 0.005%. Do 275 in Togo against 10 million or 8 million, you get about 0.003%. Burkina has about 20.1 million people. Now 396 people died in Burkina. If you calculate the percentage, you get 0.001%. So it means that more people died in Ghana than they died in our neighboring countries. Yet you want us to believe that you manage COVID better than these countries. However, none of these countries went to the IMF for $3 billion loan in the name of COVID. None of them got about $450 million from the World Bank in the name of COVID. None of them got about 150 million euro from the European Union. None of them dipped their hands into their central banks to withdraw money in the name of COVID. Now, when these monies were withdrawn, now he said that here, and the president reiterated saying that, oh, we provided free electricity and free water. Now, how many people benefited from the free electricity. I never benefited it. I don't think you did, and I don't think he did, depending on the consumption that all of us enjoyed. Now, but the free water was given to all. Do you know I have filed a question in this parliament for months now, demanding the Minister for Finance to come tell the people of this country how much the state spent in the provision of the free electricity and the free water, and how much they have collected so far in the name of COVID levy. And this minister repeatedly refused to answer the question. Now, how do you then turn around and look into our miserable faces and tell us that you gave us free electricity, free water, when we are paying for it, assuming that the state spent 20 million Ghana cedis in providing the free electricity and free water, and so far they have collected about 50 million Ghana cedis? Wouldn't that be extorting the already extorted citizens of this country by this incompetent and corrupt government? We need to know. So it is absolutely not true. In fact, Burkina went for only $20 million in the name of COVID. This government and this president profited from the COVID pandemic. We all know what happens at the airport. And the fact that we were taking $150, the only country that was taking that much, by a company that initially operated without a license. Kessie, the Minister for Health, when he appeared before the appointment committee and said they operated initially without a license. And they opened an offshore account, and any money that they got there were offloaded, were sent into the offshore account. Who have they been able to account to in this country? Now again, if you look at the unemployment, we were all affected by COVID. And you see, I am strategically not making references to countries outside West Africa. I'm making references to countries within West Africa. Now, Nigeria, as we sit today, unemployment in Nigeria is 9.79%. Togo is 3.94%. Ivory Coast is 3.47%. Senegal is 3.62%. Ghana, per the census report that was presented, 17.4%. Are we the only country that was affected by COVID? When, by the way, many people died in Ghana than they died in those countries. When we have borrowed more than any of our neighbors in the name of COVID, yet we cannot even still account for the monies that have been borrowed. It is also significant also to state inflation, because the president said that some of the problems are not his fault because he inherited debt. I mean, it is just unfathomable that the president who has borrowed over 480 billion will tell us that he inherited debt. That is what the president is telling us. Inflation in Nigeria, as of September last year, was 20.77%. Togo 7.9%. Ivory Coast 6.3%. Senegal 11.9%. Ghana at that time was 37.4%. Today, what is inflation in Ghana? So when you come and then you tell us that no, the reason why we are facing these challenges is because of Ukraine war and also COVID. Every country is affected by it. Why is it that we are more affected? It has to do with how we manage it. And by the way, the president, and he also reiterated same, that we should look at the economy they inherited in 2017. Don't even talk about Dumso. Your boss, Dr. Bawumia, himself acknowledged publicly that President Mahama solved Dumso and said that if President Mahama solved Dumso, must he be praised for solving Dumso? Everybody knows the reason why our economy grew in 2017-2018 was already projected. The IMF program, the World Bank and the IMF had all projected how the economy was going to grow. Now, when you got out of the IMF, that was the beginning of your Waterloo. And today, you told everybody that we're not going back to the IMF, that we will not go to the IMF. The Minister for Finance said we will not go to IMF. Everybody said we will not go to IMF. We are with IMF now begging, and now begging China and other countries to assist us. He said the national chairman should not have spoken about corruption. Who doesn't know that President Nana Addo has perfected corruption? Everybody in this country knows that the most corrupt government ever in our history. Don't take my word. Go and read the verdict of CDD. And in fact, Professor Juma Boydu, when he was asked about Nana Addo's fight against corruption, he said that his fight against corruption is in tatters. The last time I checked, Professor Juma Boydu is not a friend to the NDC. So all these issues, when people raise them, then you come back and you tell us that
because of ABC. But let me also make this point.
That's the last point.
Let me make this point.
Right.
Let's look at the economy you inherited and the economy the NDC inherited. President Mahama, you described as incompetent. Your debt to GDP was a little over 60%. Today, it's 104%. Inflation at that time was 15%. Today, inflation is 54%. Unemployment, you inherited unemployment of 6.8%. Today, by the census report which was presented, inflation is 17.4%. But let me conclude on the roads. That was another falsehood. And I'm going to make this thing available to you. When the president looked into our faces and peddled that falsehood. And this information is gotten from budget statements presented by the ministers of finance for and on behalf of the president. And if there is any lie, then you can hold the minister for finance responsible. And I want to be fair. If you look at 2009, as captured in 2010 budget statement, and the paragraph is paragraph 362, paragraph 365, paragraph 370. Trunk roads was 108 kilometers. Feeder roads, 869 kilometers. Urban roads, 1,416 kilometers. A total of 2,393 kilometers. I would want to just do this, the total sum so that we can. Now, if you look at the roads that were constructed.
I needed to be able to come back to you.
I'm not going to go to the detail, but I just did the first one so that you can get the figures. Between 2009 to 2012, and by the way, captured in budget statements presented to Parliament, the total kilometers of road constructed by the Prof. Mills President Mahama administration was 9,553.22 kilometers. Now let's come and look at between 2013 to 2016, that was under President Mahama. The total roads of constructed were 5,995 kilometers. Now let's look at what President Nana Addo did. What President Nana Addo did between 2017 to 2020. By the way, all the paragraphs that you have in the budget statements are a total of 4,331 kilometers. Now 2021 to 2022, as captured in 2022 budget and found also in 2023 budget. If you look at the 2022 budget, paragraph 867, the trunk roads, 162 kilometers, feeder roads, 412 kilometers, urban roads, 262 kilometers, and a total of 836. So you have a total of roads contracted so far between 2021 and 2022. Okay. It will give you 2,122 kilometers. Yet this president will look into our faces and peddle such falsehood. These are figures presented to the people of this country by the Minister for Finance. And anytime he's presenting the budget, he says, I'm presenting it for and on behalf of the president.
Let me go
challenge
to you.
These figures, play the ball and don't play the man.
Let me come to you, Doc. Unfortunately, I'm almost running out of time. So, I'll give you maybe about 3 minutes or 4 minutes, and I'll come and give.
My senior brother has raised a number of issues which you required, if you have an unfettered interruption of my time, which you require.
No, I will allow you to. I'll allow you to.
First and foremost, I will not even go back to the statement of Asiedu Nketia, which I said there were a lot of factual inaccuracy and misrepresentation of facts. And I pointed to you some of that about depreciation of the currency, the figure he presented. I questioned it and I gave you proof to that. I pointed to the fact that the debt stock as at 2016, he said it's not an issue. But he has forgotten that if we take 120 and subtract the current value of 225 and you do the percentage, he's going to get the wrong figure of 104% of GDP he's given. And the debt stock increase. He's forgotten that. And he said it is not relevant. It is relevant because it is a basis for which you make your conclusion and you give your verdict that this is our debt. So that is one. Secondly, he has given us statistics and said that Togo didn't go for IMF fund. You said that none of this country has gone.
No, and I said none of them went for $3 billion loan from the IMF.
And I'm saying that.
Hold on. Don't misrepresent me.
You made your point.
No, but
you quoted the figure. You quoted the figure that none of them have gone for the $3 billion.
None of them went for $3 billion loan. None of them went for $450 million. I never said they didn't.
So let me give you the figures. The AFDB, African Development Bank, gave Togo, Benin, and Guinea a credit facility to fight COVID. Apart from that,
How much?
Togo received. That was it was denominated in what do you call it in dollars. That's about 20 million. 20 million. I have it here. AFDB.
That's for only Togo.
No, for the
All
three
of
countries.
them.
I'm coming to Togo.
$20 million.
Apart from that, World Bank, under their IDA program, gave Togo $1 billion, an additional $8.1 billion as COVID support money.
$1 billion.
$1 billion, an additional 8.1 million as COVID support fund. That is just Togo. And the fact that you are not privy to what is happening in other, and I'll give you an example. I'll just give you an example. They have been creating the perception that none of these countries went for money and that they went for 3 billion. You yourself, the size of a country relative to those countries are the denominators you use in seeking this fund. And you are drawing rights, your special drawing rights, and your entitlement thereof. So that argument is false. That perception they have been creating. Nigeria is even on our program, even on the back of the program.
How much did they go for
okay,
loan in the
that
name
is
of
one.
COVID?
If you have said that you give me uninterrupted time to respond to this, so I hope you indulge me in that. Again, he mentioned about central bank. None of these countries has borrowed money from their central bank. That is also not true.
I didn't say that. Don't misrepresent. I said none of them dipped their hands into a central bank. Hold on, went in for money and borrowed more. So don't misrepresent facts.
So I'll give you that too. None of them dipped their hands. But
Yes, I would say it's not true. Central bank financing, I mean, even their case, the West African bank, they have a common bank. Okay? I mean, Francophone countries, their money zone. Okay? They supported these countries on the back of balance of payment challenges and their overdraft extended to them. That is trite knowledge, and he said, maybe a Google search will expose that. My brother has gleaned, he has closed his eyes to that. Again, I mean, that's what I'm saying. That we have to go at statistics on COVID death. I'm happy you drew his attention to the fact that, and I'm also happy that in his analysis, he did death per capita. That is good. But he has forgotten that even the same World Bank, I mean, WHO, President Ghana and President other countries, the same WHO has blamed Nigeria for underreporting of COVID deaths.
So we didn't underreport.
Okay. No, but you cannot take one side of their report and go down with it and then jettison one other part. You see, so I'm just exposing some of the inconsistency, and that when you are presenting facts, the fidelity to that fact should be done both ways. So if you are saying that this country, I mean, I'm happy that I didn't need to even respond to that because you were right and you nailed the head, I mean, the nail right on the head when you mentioned the systems in Ghana was robust, and for the first time, our responsive management system has been acclaimed as one of the best in the world. So that record is there. We don't need to go to as to whether, I mean, he mentioned also about the fact that our debt to GDP is 104. I mean, I pardon that because he's using $120 billion as our debt stock after the time we came to office. So when he's using that, he's trying to guess those figures. But I don't even know the source for that particular 104 billion. That is his own mathematical research and analysis. That you go and pick the end of December, what do you call it, inflation for your period, and go and match it with statistical service reports as a December inflation being 50%, and you say you would handle over inflation of this percent to you. You should have sat down to do analysis. What was the end period inflation for the year 2021? That was settled not the 30%, the 40% that was recorded as of December. So what was it? Okay, that's what I'm saying. It's not for my duty to provide you with those figures. But when you come with figures that are infactual, it will expose them. Look, when government performs and the figures are not good, I'm the first to admit. But if a government does something extremely well and it is worth of commendation, I expect the NDC to give the president thumbs up for that.
3 minutes. Indulge me on that. 3 minutes.
I really don't know whether I should cry or I should laugh. I mean, he said, first and foremost, he misrepresented what I said. I never said that none of them were for money. I was making reference to that.
He has agreed to that. He accepted that.
And now again, he talked about the fact that when we see that inflation, and then I then tell him, if you see the figures I have provided is not the right figure, then provide the figure. We have a responsibility to inform, educate. Maybe perhaps he's interested in entertaining. if you think that the figures I have provided are not accurate figures, you have a duty to communicate to the viewing public. This is the figure, because he knows in the heart of his heart that the figures I have provided are the accurate figures. What is inflation now? Now he's worried about how inflation is calculated. Your boss, Dr. Bawumia, that is how he was calculating inflation when he had the podium to deliver the Voodoo Economics at Central University. It was the same calculation. Every processes by which we calculate inflation was the same processes you calculated inflation when you're in opposition. One point I want to make mention of. He said that, oh, we set up the office of the special prosecutor. I think that my brother is very courageous. And you see, Northerners, we are very courageous. For him to have that courage, to even talk about special prosecutor, how did that man describe the president? The mother serpent for corruption. I thought you would have even run away from that word. And then you have the courage. A lot of your communicators no longer talk about corruption. And I challenge you, go and read the 2017 budget statement. That was the first budget statement made by this president. Every paragraph of that budget statement, you find corruption in there, how they're going to fight corruption. And as the years gone by, they started moving away from corruption. Take the last financial statement which was presented. The word corruption was mentioned once in the entire budget statement. The word corruption. Because this president, this government and corruption are like Siamese twins. They go together. You can only separate them at the risk of losing one. And certainly one cannot go and leave the other. Go and read the Corruption Perception Index. The highest we have ever scored in this country happened under President Mahama when we scored 48%. The lowest we have scored under President Mahama is what we are celebrating today. So it is not about NDC. Now, what General Mosquito said, and I'm concluding, what General Mosquito said on that day, and I can understand, he was not there to speak the flowery English, the big words, as my brother did today. Strangely, he is one who speaks very simple English. I don't know why today I wanted to look for my dictionary. He was using words. I attended the Saito school. I wasn't even getting those words. The ordinary Ghanaian is interested in butter, bread and butter. That is what the ordinary Ghanaian is interested in. And ask yourself whether the state of the economy today is better than the state of the economy we inherited in 2016. We are in a complete mess. And the sad thing is that we have to go through this experience, this agony, for the next 1 year to 2 years. That is what democracy can do for us. So the only salvage, the only opportunity we have is to boot out this most corrupt, incompetent government so that we can salvage.
This is Good Evening Ghana. My name is Kwesi Afriyie. I sat in for Paul Adom Ochiri, Dr. Tia Abdul Kabir.
So I will not respond to my senior brothers.
He's a technical advisor to the office of the Vice President. Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, Comrade Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed. And early on we had lawyer Martin Pebu and Dr. Adu Anane on the bond issues. Good evening to you once again, Vincent Sofori. Good evening to you, Abrifa Mensah in Sunyani. And
we didn't express our condolences.
Let me do that. Kindly, producer, kindly indulge me. 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
I met him in the Chief Parliament. I served in the Finance Committee with him. An outstanding personality, down to earth. A senior brother taught me diplomatic practice when I was doing masters at Lyceum, Ambassador Dike Osei. And I have some relationship, if you like, one on academic relationship with the family, and two, someone who tuteled me. One thing that came to mind when I heard of his unfortunate demise was when a tribute was read. He read a tribute for Prof. Mills, when Prof. Mills passed, and he wept bitterly on the floor. It had to take people, senior members, to walk to him to console him. This was a man. He wept bitterly, regardless of the fact that Prof. Mills was from a different political party, and he was. And anytime I engage him on economy, I don't have economic background. I realized anytime I engage him on economy when we were on the Finance Committee, the only way I could find an escape was to do politics. And he was speaking economics. So I think that our condolences to the Bree family, the wife and the children.
My condolences to Dr. Akoto. I think my closest working relationship was when he served at the EMT as one of the ministers responsible for monitoring evaluation. And I also think that it's a personal loss to the vice president so much, because he worked closely with him when he was even the Bank of Ghana, and even when he became the vice running mate and the vice president, he's been working with him. He's one person he takes counsel from, and whenever we sit for meeting, he was able to think on his feet, provide solutions suggest solutions that government could work with to ensure that we're able to improve our lot. It's a big loss to the country. And I can only, at this particular stage, wish the family all the best. And that they say, our people will say that may we have a heavy stone to place on their heart so that they will not be so much distracted by that great, huge loss. Yeah, my condolences and the condolences of the Vice President.
We shall start Ramadan pretty soon. And if we can wish our Muslim brothers and say, I may not have the opportunity.
Fair enough.
It's an obligatory fasting. And Allah says in the Quran that Ya ayyuhal lazina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam kama kutiba alal lazina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. That fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed for those before you, that you may attain piety. It's an opportunity when you deny yourself food, water from dawn to dusk, that you learn the experiences, you understand that some people are in a state of perpetual fasting. You can extend to them your assistance and support, and also abstain, because it's only Allah who knows the reward of fasting.
Right.
So I think that we are getting into that month of Ramadan, if you permit me. Second cycle institutions. There are Muslim students, young men and young women who are in some secondary schools and colleges. Ghana is a very tolerant country. I plead with them to understand the situation that these kids are, and provide the necessary opportunities for them to engage in their fasting without much difficulty.
Yeah, I associate fully with the statement by my senior brother. Let's do that. Let's be thorough and let's provide opportunity for people to profess their faith. And I think that that's the only way we can devolve in our diversity.
And to all my Muslim friends, you need to fast and pray for us as well. And let me say again that the current member of parliament for the Old Tafo constituency, Ecole Vincent Asafua, also was part of a delegation today to the former president John Ajikun Kufuor to announce to him the passing on of Dr. Akutu Osei, who was a member of state, a minister of state in charge of finance. And so we round up with my announcement again on AFCON.
Metro TV, insightful and inspiring moments. Metro TV, insightful and inspiring moments.
Has Christianity always been one of the religions in the world to you?
Oh, hallelujah. Praise God. Christianity is not a religion, neither is it a joining of a church and doing the Christian things like praying and giving and so on. Hallelujah. Christianity